Be seated. So rather than doing the traditional triumphant entry into Jerusalem this year, we're going to look at what happened before that. So, hear this word from the Gospel of Mark. Now the Passover and the festival of unleavened bread were only 2 days away. And the chief priests and the teachers of the law were scheming to arrest Jesus secretly and kill him. But not during the festival, they said, or the people may riot. While he was in Bethany, reclining at a table in the home of Simon the leper, a woman came with an alabaster jar of very expensive perfume, made of pure nard. She broke the jar and poured the perfume on his head. Some of those present were saying indignantly to one another, "Why, this is a waste of perfume. It could have been sold for more than a year's wages and the money given to the poor." And they rebuked her harshly. "Leave her alone," Jesus said. "Why are you bothering her? She has done a beautiful thing to me. The poor you will always have with you, and you can help them any time you want, but you will not always have me." So she did what she could. She poured perfume on my body beforehand to prepare for my burial. Truly, I tell you, wherever the gospel is preached throughout the world, and what she has done will also be told in memory of her. Then Judas Iscariot, one of the 12, went to the chief priests to betray Jesus to them. They were delighted to hear this and promised to give him money. So he watched for an opportunity to hand him over. On the first day of the festival of unleavened bread, it was customary to sacrifice the Passover lamb. Jesus' disciples asked him, "Where do you want us to go and to make preparations for you to eat the Passover?" So he sent 2 of his disciples, telling them, "Go into the city, and a man carrying a jar of water will meet you. Follow him. Say to the owner of the house he enters, 'The teacher asks, where is my guest room, where I may eat the Passover with my disciples?' He will show you a large room upstairs, furnished and ready. Make preparations for us there." Warren Buffett once said, "It takes 20 years to build a reputation and 5 minutes to ruin it." Think about that. You'll do things differently. He's right. He's right. When I say the word or the name Brutus, what do you think? When I say the name Benedict Arnold, what do you think? When I say the name Judas Iscariot, what do you think? Traitors, right? All traitors. We may not know too much about what they had done in their life before that point or even after that point, but what do we remember about those names? Linked to them is the word traitor. They could have spent 20 years building great reputations, and in one act, they're remembered for this one thing. Harriet Beecher Stowe. You're familiar with her? What did she do? In the mid-1800s, she wrote a book called Uncle Tom's Cabin, which became a political tract for the abolitionist movement. She sold over 4 million copies of that book over a period of 10 years. And what she did by writing that book was to create a whole mindset and a culture about slavery during that time to make the abolitionist movement possible. What inspired her to do that? She had an 18-month-old boy who died of cholera. And at his bed and at his grave, it hit her like a ton of bricks. Oh my God, this must be what it is like for a slave woman to have her baby ripped from her. So she wrote the book. We don't know that much about her life beforehand or afterwards, but what we do remember is this book she wrote, which changed everything. Rosa Parks. What comes to your mind when you think of Rosa? She became the tipping point, didn't she? By refusing to go to the back of the bus that day, she became the tipping point to make the civil rights movement possible. Now, she's well documented, but we don't think so much about what she did before or after that point. We remember that moment in time when she took courage to stand on her values and her principles and refused to move to the back of the bus because she was a human being like everybody else. Mother Teresa, what do you think when you think of Mother Teresa? A woman who chose to live in poverty so she could help those who did live in poverty and were dying in poverty to have some dignity. And she's inspired thousands and thousands and thousands of people all over the world who do the same thing for poor people. You see? What we think, what we say, what we do matters. It all matters. It all matters. It takes 20 years to build a reputation, and you can lose it in 5 minutes. Now, let's compare what happened with this woman who came into the house of Simon the leper and anointed Jesus with expensive perfume. The story says they were all sitting there, Jesus, his disciples, friends, followers, and she walks in. We don't know her name. And she takes this perfume that's just as pure as it can be. The perfume is worth a year's wages. So think about it for a moment. How many of you love your husbands, your wife, your children? How many of you would give up a year's worth of your income to do something extravagant for them? Like buying perfume, right? Something happened in an NFL kind of like this. Chris Long, defensive end for the Philadelphia Eagles, the son of the famous football player Howie Long. Chris Long donated his salary for 2017 to create educational opportunities and equality for children through his foundation. A year's worth of salary to do that. That's extravagant, isn't it? And wouldn't you think that if you were sitting in that room and all of the friends and everybody is there, your movement, your followers, we were all sitting there, and she comes walking in and she breaks open this alabaster jar of oil and just let it run over Jesus' head. And the smell of this perfume just filled the whole place. Wouldn't you think that we'd all just be sitting there in awe and think, oh my God, I know how expensive that is. I've been wanting to buy it for years. I can't afford it. Oh my God, look what she, oh, no, that's not what happened. Immediately, some became indignant. Oh my God, what a waste. You know we could have sold that and fed the poor with it for a year. You see, what happens in those moments in time, if we go into life with narrow vision, even if it's for the best of causes, if we go into life with a narrow vision, we can't see the extravagant and the beautiful that's all around us. And look at Jesus' response to this. I think it's very interesting. Jesus loved the poor. He fed the poor. He healed the poor. He's in the house of Simon the leper. That was an untouchable. Could you imagine that being your name? Hi, I'm Barton the leper. Oh. Hi, I'm Alan the cholera. Hey, good, nice to meet you. And Jesus' response was fascinating. Leave her alone. Why are you harassing her? The poor you will have with you always. You can serve and help them anytime. But what she has done for me is a beautiful thing. She showed extravagant love, and look, Jesus received the extravagant love. How many of you, when we try to love you extravagantly, say, no, don't bother, no. I used to do that before I got sick, and I found that receiving the extravagant love of this congregation transformed my life. Because you see, I'm the giver. It's hard for givers to take, right? And once I allowed myself to receive, you transformed my life. You see, that, Jesus allowed her to love him in this extravagant way. Then he told them, she has prepared my body for burial before I die. How many of us express our love for someone after they're dead? How many of us praise? How many of us lament that, oh, I wish I would have spent more time or done. Yeah. Do it while they're alive. That's when we can appreciate it the most. Love each other while you're here in the present. Love each other extravagantly. Now notice in the storytelling how it pivots so quickly. After you have this beautiful scene of perfume and the air full of this wonderful smell, and this woman who's just anointed Jesus, and then his coming to her rescue and teaching them a powerful lesson, immediately then Judas slipped away, and he went to the high priest to tell them that he would be the one to hand Jesus over to them at the opportune time. And Jesus Iscariot, a zealot, went to the other religious zealots. And what does it say? They all delighted in this opportunity. Oh, goody, 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 goody. We're finally going to get him. We get to kill somebody. Yes! We love God so much we get to kill him. Ah, isn't that amazing? Isn't it amazing? The most religious in the story are the ones who plotted to kill Jesus. And they were delighted. What we say, what we do matters. Now, over the last few years, there have been attempts to somehow make Judas look like the tragic hero. And I've read the stories and I've read the explanations, and yeah, you can kind of see that maybe somehow Jesus and Judas had conspired with one another, and Judas had to do this in order for Jesus to fulfill his destiny. Personally, I don't buy it. Did Abraham Lincoln or Gandhi or John F. Kennedy or Robert Kennedy or Martin Luther King Jr. have to conspire with their assassins before they got killed? No. Judas had a choice. And it says he did it for what? Money. I don't know. Maybe that was a tipping point for her. All this money that they could have made off this perfume was poured over Jesus' head, and so he was going to get money from those who were going to arrest Jesus and kill him. No matter what Judas did before this time, no one really remembers. What do we remember? It's he betrayed Jesus. Right? Maybe that's Judas trying to come back in here But one of the things that the story touches us is that extravagant love is never wasted. You see? You can give your life for a cause. You can give up somebody else for a cause. You can be a zealot for a cause. You can do evil against other humanity, and people will remember you about how evil you are. But extravagant love is remembered forever. Now, there's some extravagant love going on behind the scenes right now. Methinks he does protest too much. So the disciples are all coming together for Passover. You remember what Passover is in Exodus? That's when after like the 10th plague of all the plagues God put upon Egypt to set God's people free, the last one was a death angel was going to come, and the firstborn of everything was going to be killed. So in order for you and your household to be safe, you slaughtered a lamb, you took the blood of the lamb, and you painted it on the threshold of your house, and when the angel of death came flying over, they saw that blood, and the angel passed over. All right? So it's a celebration of unleavened bread. It's a celebration of liberation from slavery. Passover did not happen for Jesus. He didn't get to experience being liberated or spared, did he? No, because one of his own betrayed him. Now look, here's the reality. If you live long enough, life happens. It just happens. Now, some of the bad things we experience in life, we create for ourselves because of unhealthy decision-making skills, because of toxic behaviors. So we create some of our own suffering. But there are times in life when life happens and you just happen to be at the wrong place at the wrong time. Puerto Rico right now happened to be in the eye of a level 5 hurricane. And there's a lot of suffering going on over there that had nothing to do with the people there and their lives. And the suffering continues, right? Are any of you familiar with Arlen D. Williams, Jr.? Do you know that name? Arlen D. Williams, Jr.? Okay. I want you to place that in your head and remember this name. Arlen D. Williams, Jr. Remember, in 1990, there was a flight coming out of Ronald Reagan Airport to fly to Tampa, Florida. And they tried to take off during a blizzard. The plane was not able to get high enough to make it over the bridge. It crashed into the bridge and plummeted into the Potomac. Killed almost everybody on board. A few people were able to rise above the water in the river, but hypothermia and shock and everything had started taking hold, and there was a helicopter that flew over. I remember watching this on TV. I'll never forget it. Never forget it. And a cable was let down for people to grab a hold of the cable, and the helicopter would drag them to the shore to safety where people had gathered to bring them in. Arlen continued to grab the cable and hand it to another person. And another person came swimming. He took the cable and he handed it to another one. And I remember the last one. There was a woman, you could see that she was just about to be consumed by the cold and the shock and the trauma. And he handed the cable to her, and the helicopter dragged her ashore. And then you just see him on the piece of ice in the river, and he slowly slips down. Do you know what he did for a living? He worked for the Federal Reserve. Nobody remembers that. But do you remember the incident that I'm talking about? If you've lived long enough, if you're beyond 1990, yeah. Arlen Williams, Jr., an employee of the Federal Reserve, at that moment, at that time, chose to give the cable to safety to everyone else around him. What goes through a person's mind in that moment, right? At the high school in Parkland, when the shooter was in the school, taking on his massacre, there were people in the school who consciously chose in that moment to give up their life to save others. Teachers, students. There was a police officer outside, a veteran of 20, 30 years. What did he choose to do? Not go in. Nancy Rosado, would you have gone in? All you had was a handgun? Yeah. I don't blame him for being scared. The guy's got an semi-automatic weapon. He's got a handgun. But others had no protection, and they chose. So no matter what this man did in public service for 30 years, what will he always be remembered for? He didn't go in, and he ordered others not to. See? What we think, what we say, what we do matters. You can build a reputation in 20 years, and in 5 minutes, you can ruin it. Betraying yourself, I want you to hear that. Betraying yourself and betraying others has consequences. And they're serious consequences. Jesus chose not to betray himself or humanity. Jesus knew who he was, very clear, fully conscious. And in spite of the suffering which lay ahead of him, he chose not to betray himself or others. You see, what you do matters. And what he did instead is offer humanity hope for all time. because he chose to love us how? Extravagantly. Yeah? And the only way that you can truly experience this extravagant love that Jesus gives and that God bestows upon us every day is to have the capacity to love yourself and to somehow think that it's not so much you deserve it, but it just is. It's like pouring expensive perfume over your head. Just let it pour. Just let it all soak in. Just take in everything, you see. And God is bestowing this incredible, pure perfume upon our heads, anointing us every single day with God's love. Betraying ourselves and betraying others is severely consequential. Love yourselves extravagantly. So, Pastor Barton, I can't do that. That would be selfish. If you worry about being, okay, let me tell you, I've been around a few years now. This is what I've discovered. Really, narcissistic, selfish people have no clue that they're narcissistic or selfish. They don't ever worry about it. They think they're entitled to everything anyway, right? Am I right? You've lived long enough, you know, right? It's only the people who are really selfless who worry about being what? Selfish. If you're worrying about it, you don't have a problem. Allow yourself to be loved extravagantly. When your wife buys you 2 opportunities to drive a Ferrari for a period of maybe 4 minutes total and spends lots of money doing it, that's extravagant giving. And I'm a better human being today because I let it happen. I might have been tempted to say, oh, sweetheart, don't do that. That's too much money. Let's pay the utility bill instead. No! Do you know what it's like to sit in a Ferrari with 800 horsepower? And you push the little pedal and it goes big. You see, no, but my point is, love extravagantly. Jesus allowed that woman to love him extravagantly, did he not? Did he not receive it and then defend it? Jesus loved himself enough to allow it to happen and celebrate the fact that someone somehow got it before he was to be crucified. And they chose to love him while he was still alive. Yeah. Jesus loved himself. He wasn't a victim of bad things. Jesus allowed it to happen because he knew it would fulfill his purpose and his destiny. Love yourself as extravagantly as you are loved. Think of the evil that happens in the world, and it comes from people who truly hate themselves. You remember we used to talk about bullies? Well, why are they bullying? Because deep down inside, they hate themselves, and rather than dealing with it, they project it onto other people, right? That's what bullies do, yeah? Don't be a bully to your own soul, your own spirit. If you keep filling your head with all these horrible thoughts and about how horrible you are and how stupid you are and how ugly you are and how inadequate you are, then get help to overcome it. Because you're not glorifying God or yourself. And you're limiting your ability to love others extravagantly. So, well, I love others all the time. Yes, you do. But think how much more and powerful it would be if you did it from a place of genuine love for yourself, rather than trying to soothe a guilty heart and conscience. Right? That's powerful love. That's 8 laps in a Ferrari love. It is. Love yourselves extravagantly. Love others extravagantly, because it matters. It matters. An extravagant love is never forgotten. Extravagant love is always remembered. And after you've long left this planet, what people will remember you the most by is how you loved them and how you lived your life. Thus ends the lesson. Let us pray.